did the song go? Anyways, enjoy the content.
Hello, everybody. It's your boy, the Punk Otaku Scribe, and welcome to Punk Reviews, the review show where we look at movies, TV shows, and anime, both current and classic. And in this edition of Punk Reviews, we'll be looking at The Flash, directed by Andy Muschietti and starring Ezra Miller. The Flash is one of my all-time favorite superheroes. Whenever I'm asked, what superpowers would you have if you were to have superpowers? And I always go with super speed. I think it's one of the coolest superpowers you can have, and because of that, I really love the Flash. I also really love Quicksilver. Just speedsters is just really cool to me, but I've always really loved the Flash specifically when it comes to a superhero with that power set. Anytime the Flash shows up in something, whether it's in a Justice League animated series or in the DC animated universe movies, he's my favorite part of those things. In fact, the Flashpoint Paradox animated movie, I'd have to say, is probably my favorite of those. It was one of the first to come out in a string of like these modern ones that have been coming out. A Flash live action movie from the DCEU was a huge thing for me, and I got really excited for it. But I do want to let it be known, I'm not going to come at this movie with any kind of bias because of that. I do like to think of things critically, and because of that, I do want it to just put it out there that I was not buying into the studio's claims of this is the best superhero movie ever made, and I saw the movie and it's not by a long shot. Even if Guardians 3 and Spider-Man had not come out this year, it wouldn't even be close to getting that title at all. But despite it not being their greatest superhero movie ever made, it's still pretty good. Hear me out. As much as I enjoyed this movie, I have to admit that it actually has an equal balance of positives and negatives. It'll have moments of brilliance, and then those moments of brilliance will be undercut by something terrible or something really bad or just an awkward choice. The entire 2 hours and 20 minutes, well, not the entire 2 hours and 20 minutes, for the first act, I was enjoying it thoroughly. And then after that, it was a lot of me going like this. Ooh. Oh. Ooh. Oh. Oh. It's just a lot of that, even in the first act a little bit, there are some sparks of that, where it just roller coasters like that in quality. For instance, and I'm just going to put it out there, it's just, I gotta say it, because like I said, I look at things critically, but Ezra Miller was quite good in this. I know, I'm sorry, they were, but they were quite good in this. And, there are two things, like I mentioned, there's, an to almost every ooh, and the performance was an ooh, but it had two things that undercut it. One, of course, was the obvious controversy and their crimes surrounding this movie. And the second was that I just don't feel like this performance was fully earned. This movie acts like we've had an entire franchise's worth of story building to get to this point, when we haven't. They haven't been doing the Marvel formula very well at all. They tried, but they rushed it, and because of that, it's not as seamlessly connected as they think it is. As much as I enjoy many of the movies in the DCEU, I can admit that they haven't done a very good job connecting this cohesively. When it came to Justice League, they just threw a lot of these characters at us, one of which being Barry Allen the Flash. And in Justice League, we get a scene where he goes to visit his father in prison, and they talk about, his mother's death and how he believes his father's innocent. They talk about the case a little bit. And then here, they continue with that. But it's been 6 years since that movie, with no other mentions of that in the franchise at all. But it's when we act like we've been building up to it. It makes sense that that's part of the story of this film, but it hasn't earned it. And that's the second to Ezra's performance, is that it feels so sudden. It makes sense that he would feel very dejected and sad, and would be a bit more mature and subdued in this movie, but it hasn't been building up to that, so it feels kind of jarring. You know, you've seen that scene in the trailer where Michael Keaton's Batman is talking to him about how Barry changed fate and brought his parents back. And Keaton, says, of all the universes, why would you stay in this one? And Barry says, because this is the one where my mom lives. And, you feel that. You feel that sincerity from this performance. You feel the sincerity from Barry. You believe Barry, that he just feels so much out of all of the antics that he pulls out of his personality. When it comes to his mom, everything changes for him. And because of that, when he looks up to Bruce and says, because this is the one where my mom lives, with that look in that face, it makes sense. When it comes to his mom, he doesn't mess around, and he truly feels like he's justified in doing what he did, and going back in time and righting what he felt was an extreme wrong that should not have happened. But this performance was not earned. We didn't build up to it. And then we have Supergirl, played by Sasha Calle, Kara Zor-El. That's another, ooh, oh, she doesn't really do anything. Which she doesn't. They go and rescue her under the assumption that she's actually Clark, Superman. And when they rescue her, they revitalize her with the power of the sun, just like, any withered, Kryptonian would need. And then she leaves, and then comes back for some reason. And you've seen the scene in the trailer where she's like, flying up in the sky. She comes back to do that, and then the third act happens where they're fighting Zod and all the other evil Kryptonians. The action scenes with her were really cool, but there wasn't really much to her other than, I'm an angsty Kryptonian and I need to be an angsty Kryptonian because this movie needs me to. I don't know, that's what I got from it. I was very underwhelmed by her. The performance itself, like, Sasha Calle as an actor did quite well. The performance is fine. It's not a bad performance, but the writing surrounding the character is very bland, very empty. It was so disappointing. But I mean, it was cool to watch her fly around and like punch stuff. She's very menacing, very violent and angry, and it made for some cool fight scenes. But after that, there wasn't really much. And just like with Bear's motivation, her motivations were extremely rushed. Zod is back and is sort of the pseudo threat of the movie. Again, Michael Shannon's Zod. Ooh. Oh. Coming from the fact that he doesn't really do anything either. I really liked Zod in Man of Steel. I thought it was a very, interesting take on Zod. But they didn't translate that to this movie. He was kind of just there to speak bad guy platitudes. And that, like I said in the beginning, that's this whole movie, really. Overall, it's a movie of brilliance. It's really fun and is really explosive and funny. But it's got a lot wrong with it. Last thing that I'll touch on before I give my overall thoughts. I know this review is kind of short, but I can't really say a lot without getting too much into spoilers. But last thing that I'll get into is the CGI. It's bad. You may have heard that a lot already, but it's bad. It's not. I've seen a lot of claims around online that make it sound like the CGI is bad throughout. Like it's just unwatchable. It's not that bad. For most of the movie, the CGI actually looks quite good. The Speed Force looks really cool, and the running effects are done very well. But the effects were so good for so long in the movie that once it got into doing bad CGI, my first glimpse of it made me jump like, oh, wow, that looks really bad. And the first instance of it, to me at least, that I caught was that really got to me anyway, was when the two Barrys and Batman are in the Batjet, and the two Barrys are talking to each other. The one that's in the Flash suit, for some reason, is CGI'd, and it's rendered very badly. It looks all rubbery and everything. The facial expressions, it looks really bad, the effect on that. Like, I know that they had to use a visual effect to make, two of the same person talk in the scene, but man, that looked terrible. And then there's some other CGI, like a lot of the cameos at the end. I won't get into that too much, but that looked pretty bad too. But yeah, the CGI doesn't look bad up until maybe near the end of the second act and then onto the third act. Luckily, the special effects, the CGI is actually pretty good for that whole, like, third act final battle sequence. But there's some spots where it's terrible. Annie Muschietti has claimed, oh, well, that's on purpose. No, it's not. No, it's not. I could understand if, like, it was an artistic choice where Barry was looking at everything from the Speed Force, and so everything looked kind of warped. But Barry's not always in the Speed Force. So how do you explain how everything looks outside of the Speed Force? When they're in the Batwing and, Barry looks like a PS2 character and no one's in the Speed Force, how do you explain that? These effects were not on purpose. They're just bad. And this is coming from someone who liked the movie. Okay? Like I said, look at things critically. And the effects, there near the end, were bad. But it's not unwatchable. You could watch this movie and, it won't affect your viewing experience that much until the end. And even then, the movie's good enough that you could power through it. But yeah, like I said, that's this whole movie. Just a series of highs and lows, and it's a shame too, because this really could have been great. And even if it was great, it wouldn't have been Across the Spider-Verse or Guardians of the Galaxy 3 levels, but it could have been really great. It's definitely one of the better of the DCEU, I'll say that, but it's not as good as it could have been. At the end of the day, is it worth it to go out and see this? Yeah, it is. It's a big superhero spectacle, and it's a fun one too. Now, whether you feel like you should pay full price for it or not is up to your discretion. And if you've seen the trailers and all the marketing and think, hey, I think I'd have fun at that, then you will. This movie definitely is what it's advertised. Just, like I mentioned, there are some things about it that I felt were rushed and weren't quite earned. So if you like it, that's great. If you didn't, I get it. But I really enjoyed it despite its many flaws, and this is one that I'm going to bring home. Anyway, that's going to do it for me on this review. If you liked it, give it a like, subscribe if you're new, be sure to follow all my socials down in the description. And I've been the Punk Otaku Scribe. I'll see you in the next one.